purpose of creation. A little sharing. Some years ago, I attended a Rath Yatra. And one of the devotees at the Rath Yatra wanted to introduce me to somebody, a nice lady. She happened to be from China. And she said, I just have one question. Can I ask one question? Sure. The two-word question. Why creation? Thoughtful. I mean, just a person in the world moving around doing what people in the world do, but her light was on. Very thoughtful question. So that's what this is addressing, the purpose of creation. Now we moved from the rainy season. Shri Shri Radha Shyamasundara ki jai. And it's now the autumn season. Autumn season means rainy season has come to an end. The autumn began, and there were no more clouds in the sky. All the reservoirs of water became crystal clear, and the wind was no longer forceful. Lord Krishna, along with his elder brother, Lord Baladev, lived at Vrindavan in this auspicious season. Another nice painting, a little sliver of a painting over there on the left. But she's got a lot of practice under Tamal Krishna Raj's art director leadership, how to depict Krishna nicely. The autumn sky is clear of all clouds. There is no longer any distinction between the portion of the sky that was covered and that which was never covered. Similarly, when the living entity becomes freed from the modes of nature, he becomes one with the absolute truth. Now, what does that one with the absolute truth mean? That's the next topic. When the clouds of the material modes, when the cloud of the material modes is cleared off, the material nature is said to have been annihilated. So this is going extreme. Annihilation. So during cosmic manifestation, the modes are active. During cosmic annihilation, the modes, everything is withdrawn. Time is withdrawn, everything is withdrawn. When a living entity is freed from material modes, he becomes liberated. Who does that kirtanir look like to you? Madhava. Except it's got his long hair flying in the back instead of tied up in a bun at the back of his head. Personalities or devotees do not annihilate their individuality. Rather, devotees enjoy spiritual variegatedness. Now, this is the same painting we saw earlier, and there's two extra gopis over there on the left. And it looks like there's a monkey up in the tree up above. But spiritual variegatedness. It is for the conditioned living entities that the material nature is created. So this is why creation. And the conditioned souls are put into it to become pure and unconditioned souls. So when this nice lady asked this question, I said there's two, why creation? There's two purposes. Using another expression, It's a house of detention and a house of correction. For persons who are rebellious, they're not killed because you don't kill the soul. They're given a place, a jail. Now, one way of calling a jail is a jail, and a nice euphemistic way is it's a correctional institution. And that's really the purpose. And well, of course, one is restraining criminals from doing further criminal activity, harming others. But the real purpose is house of correction. So that's the second purpose, giving living entities the facility they wanted to try to enjoy, although there's no enjoyment, so they can learn their lesson. There's no enjoyment. And try and try and try and try and try. That which is, it's the whole thing. Call it enjoyment, but it's not really enjoyment because it's an invitation for suffering. And it's not what real enjoyment is. We discussed this topic of happiness. I have a compliments of Nandimukhi. I have another image to show that happiness message. But that's what the scriptures want. That's what Krishna wants. That's the purpose of creation. But it requires making a Krishna connection. So as the sage addressing his audience, the people who want the cultivation of human spirit, he's giving the method. So this is the other purpose of creation, to become pure and unconditioned. But there's a requirement, and that's what's being described. Krishna descends to reclaim conditioned souls. Remember that nice example of the rainbow without a string. That's the image of Krishna descending when he has no influence of the modes. And those who are connected to Krishna, the pure devotees, they're like the rainbow without a bow, without a string, to reclaim the conditioned souls. Nice. And here's the final verse for this morning's session. The highest stage in spiritual realization. So he's lifting his audience very quickly back to the scene of nature. In autumn, all the reservoirs of water become enriched with growing lotuses. The muddy water again becomes normally clear and decorated, just as fallen conditioned souls once more become spiritually enriched in devotional service. Beautiful, huh? Here's some nice paintings of lotuses. They're very attractive. It's hard. Again, I couldn't pick one only, so I put many. It's a in poetry and also in art. It's an emblem or symbol of tranquility and peace and beauty and, nature's bounty. So here comes Prabhupada with his Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, bringing the message of Krishna. As we take up devotional service, our whole life becomes clear like water in autumn. There's a nice verse in the Bhagavatam that specifically speaks like this. Only pieces of the Sanskrit are coming to my mind. Swanam bhava saroruham. Dunoti shamalam Krishna. Swanam bhava saroruham. This is it's spoken by Kapila Dev it's spoken by Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Pariksit, who wants to understand how to overcome the material condition of life. And Shukadev is examining Maharaj Parikshit by saying the neutralizing by processes of atonement can clear up the reaction of those things that are disturbing in material life. And Maharaj Parikshit said, well, okay, so reactions to past misdeeds may be purified by atonement, but the tendency still remains. So they'll go and do something improper again because the tendency still remains. Shukadev Goswami says, very good. You've understood. Yes. And therefore, the antidote for the tendency to do things that shouldn't be done can be checked by knowledge. Knowledge and detachment from tendencies. And that's insufficient also, because it may work sometimes and may not work other times. And therefore, there we go. Pravishta karnarandrena svanam bhava saroroham dunoti shamalam Krishna salilasya yata sharat. Sharat, what's the meaning of sharat? It's the autumn season. Sharat is the autumn season. So just like in the autumn season, when there's light rain upon pools of muddy water, light rain upon pools of muddy water, it has an effect. The light rain has the effect of the mud that's in the pools of water. Some tension on the surface of the water creates a situation where the mud settles. The muddy water settles. So just as light rain in the autumn season helps bring clear water instead of muddy water, so also the sound incarnation of Lord Krishna enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus, that's the sound incarnation. Pravishta, karna, pravishta means entering. Karna is the ear. Randrena is the hole in the ear. Pravishta karna randrena swanam bhava saroroham. Messages of Krishna act to bring one who's inclined toward liberation to the position of their constitutional relationship with Krishna. So that sound vibration enlivens the soul to become reestablished in their loving relation, and the muddiness of the mind also becomes relieved by those sound vibrations. So, as we take up devotional service, our whole life becomes clear like water in autumn. The Prabhupada's not referring to the chapter and verse of the Bhagavatam, but he's just expressing it in nice poetic language. Well, here's the poetic language. Then, as soon as the muddy mind is cleared by spiritual association or cultivation of the human spirit, the threefold miseries of material life are soon cleared off. He's giving the Bhagavatam gloss in metaphorical language and some nice paintings to illustrate. So this is showing some nice devotee walking on a path towards the lotus feet of Krishna. When our muddy mind is cleared, the lotus of knowledge fructifies, and we develop transcendental bliss gradually. So this is, again, a summarization of something that's from the first canto, chapter 2. By the eradication of ignorance and passion that are the result of hearing messages of Krishna, then naturally and transcendentally, knowledge awakens, knowledge and detachment awaken. Just paraphrasing in this language, in this metaphorical language, a verse from the Bhagavatam. The spiritual process is something like a long staircase. And the upward steps are variously designated as regulated work, transcendental knowledge, mystic powers, and ultimately bhakti, yoga, or devotional service. Notice what's at the top of the staircase. Krishna holding his flute and a peacock by his side. In very simple language, he's just outlining the stages of the unfolding and maturing of yoga. Life without Krishna is barren. We saw this image before. The materialist that is forgetful of Krishna, that does austerities and wants something material, gets to something material, but they're not satisfied. And then there's something material is gone after time. Life without Krishna is barren. No text. Life without Krishna is barren. Now there's some text with this. And of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So there's the Bhagavad Gita verse, last verse of chapter 6. Back to our imagery here in Vrindavan. To rise to the stage of love shown by the gopis is very difficult. But this stage is attainable for serious conditioned souls. The ray of hope again. This is that lightning that gives the ray of hope. And he's the lightning sender through this light of the Bhagavad. So that's how this section ends. I wonder how the reader in Japan would have felt hearing all these messages written and then spoken by our founder Acharya in his, mature stage of bhakti. Certainly a little bit younger than when he came to the West. But it is described when he received this invitation, when he saw the flyer or the brochure, the pamphlet, he was very eager to go. The eagerness, having received, eagerness to give is natural. And he saw a forum or an opportunity. And so he was not just writing the book. Writing the book was part of the work, but presenting this message before a group of thoughtful people. They already had identified themselves as being thoughtful, forward-thinking, elevation of human spirit thinking, not really knowing what that means. It's just a nice sounding phrase. And so giving them direction. He was very enthused to go. Krishna didn't let it happen. Krishna didn't let it happen because he didn't have the resource. He had the spirit, he had the vision, he had everything, but that Krishna had another idea. He wasn't discouraged. I mean, there's so many lessons in what Prabhupada went through, but what to speak of what he's presenting in this text. And this one is really full of hope. Conditioned souls, this and that and the other thing. But one who's very sincere, although it's difficult, the stage of attaining this elevated position is possible. It's attainable for serious conditioned souls. Full of hope. Then I imagine he would have to explain to them, who are the gopis and what are the different rasas, and the statements invite further questions and further questions, which is just fine. So, like, what's on the other end? Well, that one question, why creation? Then what's if one of the purposes of creation is to end conditioned life? What's on the other end? What's it like there? What do people do? What's the happiness that's awaiting me if I can go there? So impetus for going further and further. So that's it for this morning session. Look at this. We have a lot of time. Let's someone hit the light switch. Thank you very much. And someone can provide us the microphone. We'll start, if we can, with lessons that you receive that you feel will help you, and or lessons that you feel would help you share with others the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Go ahead, speak. Just start speaking.
So it's a comment and a question. So it's about the cow protection. So many a times we do find the opportunities, like some of the devotees have opened Goshala in various places, and I kind of support them, like raising the funds for the Goshala sort of things. But the question, which is great, that's happening. But the other side, I have a dilemma in terms of not considering cow protection as a sort of karma kanda sort of a thing, like expecting something, rather doing it because it is pleasing to Krishna. So that's the difficult part, explaining others. From my standpoint, my consciousness, I always try my best to do it as part of as an activity pleasing to Krishna. But explaining it to others is difficult. They do the donations, but internally the consciousness is okay, if I do the cow protection, I'm going to get something. So I find it tough there, explaining to people.
The difficulty is not in explaining, the difficulty is accepting. No, you're making a comment, I'm making a comment on your comment. the teaching and living are different. We know what the teachings are, and you present the teachings. It's not a problem to present the teachings. The problem is, ourselves and others who we're interacting with actually coming to the position of Shuddha Bhakti. So what do you do? Which is, what do you do? Which is kind of what your question is. You present the teaching and you make your best effort to live by it because purity is the force. Now, when Prabhupada was presenting the purity, how quickly did people come to the position of purity? Some more quickly than others, but still it's gradual. So following our great Acharya, make your own heart pure and present the message with that pure heart. And the more you can do with a pure heart, the more it's going to be impactful. Main business is save yourself. What else? Anything else you want to speak?
Yes, Maharaj. One more question I had was, I was just curious, this message is going to or all over the world, and many parts of the world, cow is eaten. So I was wondering how Prabhupada could put a message through in terms of protection of the cows to the meat eaters, the two cow eaters. So I was wondering how is that? It's such a kind of a contrast of thought process. So,
where's Radha? She's not here yet. Huh? Oh. So if she's listening online, she can give us the answer to this question. But because people, something that's so obvious, like an ahimsa message is so obvious, and persons who are not inclined to recognize the obvious, just like that, that little exchange with Radha the other day. People don't care. And there are people that don't care. Or, they have some sensibility, but they're not prepared, even they have some sensibility. So there's the modes of nature are out there, and we're dealing with the modes of nature. So it doesn't change what truth is. And it depends on the audience and the circumstance, how one presents the truth, but you present the truth. And people respond however they respond.
Krishna, I really like the way the Yukta Vairagya principle got explained, that when you utilize temporary creation in service of Krishna, they take on permanent value. And how that was expressed is that everything that is accepted in full consciousness of Krishna has a spiritual value to begin with. But then by the grace of Krishna, the material effects of those that is being offered, they become diminished
by the grace of
because
Krishna.
of increasing the degree of spiritual consciousness. So I really liked, and that's what Srila Prabhupada is referring to as the cultivation of the human spirit.
Yes. Yeah, I thank you. I was liking that point also. It's Krishna's mercy that diminishes the contamination effect. The activity itself is not the problem, it's the consciousness behind the activity. So wishing to be the enjoyer is one thing, and wishing to see the connection with Krishna is the other thing. In one sense, he didn't say it this way, but in one sense, the spiritual world is present. I just heard it yesterday. Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. I heard same thing that I heard Prabhupada say in New York, in Brooklyn, then again in Manhattan. Then again, he said it in Los Angeles, and then again, he said it in Vrindavan. He said, don't think that this is just an ordinary building. This is Vaikuntha. No, it's, we're not feeling Vaikuntha. We're feeling whatever we're feeling. But the place, because it's dedicated to Krishna, has that accessibility. And if one has the right consciousness, one to even a shadow reflection, an abbas experience of transcendence may be accessed by us. What to speak of transcendence? So it's accessible. The spiritual world is accessible presently. It's not a geographic place that you can go to, get in a rocket ship and go back to Godhead. It's present. It's accessible. Just as this particular slide is saying. The conditioned soul can go beyond conditioning. So, Yukta Vairagya. Explained very simply. And it remains notional for most people. And then it may become a little bit acted upon. Okay, anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. I just want to understand a little more on the unconditioned love. Because in this material world, there is nothing like unconditioned love, what I believe. Because everywhere the relation has some reason or some benefit they expect, so that their life will be better. So how to understand this unconditional love? Even Krishna says, read Bhagavad Gita or come into the Bhakti Yoga and then I will take you or you will reach to me. That is a condition. So how do I understand what is really unconditional love?
Well, you just put a fault on Krishna. Yes. It's not Krishna is putting a condition. The door is open, walk through it. Is that a condition? There's some effort on our side to walk through the door. The door is open. Come on in. Wait a minute. I got to walk through that door? You can't just teleport me into the indoors from outdoors? What? You're making a condition on me. So I'm being dramatic a little bit, melodramatic, but there's something from our side. Now, in support of what you just said, distinct from Krishna's putting a condition, surrender unto me, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't place that condition. And he's Krishna himself. So Mahaprabhu is described by Rupa Goswami as Mahavadanyaya, the most munificent. But supposing someone becomes a follower of Mahaprabhu, now we'll go back to the other side. Supposing somebody, we've become followers of Mahaprabhu, is there no condition? For example, Do we have to be attentive? Or we can just be inattentive. And the door is open and we get teleported inside. So is there a condition? Radha Shama Sundara ki jai. My response to your question is unconditional doesn't mean that there's no reciprocation effort on our part to the kindness that's extended to us. These two things, effort and mercy. No effort, please. Mercy only, please. That's not love. Love is both. It's an exchange. The bhakta, the object, the Bhagavan, and the relationship of bhakti. So the relationship of bhakti has, one can say, conditions. But Krishna can extend himself to bad people and deliver them. What did Krishna do with Putana? But she came and did some service. The door was open, she walked through the door. Her intention was diabolical. It's these three things. So it's not a condition exactly, it's a relationship. And then from our side, there's some effort. However imperfect and cloudy and in Putana's case, diabolical. And she had two brothers, and they got the same, they got Swarup Mukti also. Because they were sisters or brothers of Putana. So because Krishna, so it's just like this, what's the purpose of creation? Well, that's not, Krishna's making a condition. We can't just have our cake and eat it too. We can't just have separate enjoyment and it's enjoyable. There's the submission unto Krishna. And that's an unconditional condition. It's a relationship. It's not that Krishna turns his back on us and says, okay, you're going to be like that. Forget it. I'm checking out. He doesn't do that. It's unconditional. His love is unconditional, but he's reciprocating with our regard for him. And our regard for him is the condition that you mentioned. Surrender unto me, and you're with me. Manmana bhavavad bhakto. So those are conditions. It's just part of the description of what a loving relationship is. And it looks like this and this and this and this. And you're with me. Or we can choose otherwise. So it's our fault, not his. Someone else. There's a couple of hands over here in the front.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have two sharings. The first is you ask how Japanese people would feel when they see this description. And I don't know how Japanese would feel. I assume I could represent some portion of Chinese mind. As the first of all is that it is very fresh to see the description of Krishna, because Krishna, his names, forms, pastimes, and qualities are something that are uniquely pertaining to the Indian culture. They're unheard in the history and culture and China in the Far East. And at the same time, it is endearing by the description of Srila Prabhupada. He described how Krishna is as a cowherd boy having friendly exchanges with his friends, like sat on the same stone slab
Mm,
and enjoying this ordinary food stuff. And also he is having fun to
Mhm.
see the seasons, to see the rain, to see, and in addition, it is surprising. It can be surprising because this Srila Prabhupada described Krishna while having all these ordinary activities. He is the cause of all causes, and this is, I think, probably the most surprising idea for a Chinese mind to know.
mm,
The second sharing is about the lotus. Lotus is described in the last verse in our lecture today. And how Chinese people learn from lotus is, I remember there is a passage that written by a famous people in Song Dynasty, which is 1,000 years ago, and he wrote, 余都爱怜之初期初初期，于是爱怜之初淤泥而不染，濯清涟而不妖, which means he is growing from the muddy water but remained his purity. And 中通外直，不蔓不枝，香远益清，亭亭净直, which means he has a hollow stem but very straight. You look from outside, and has very lasting but light fragrance, and at the same time don't have unnecessary branches growing from left to right. And 可远观而不可亵玩焉. You can see it from a distance, but you can't really degrade its character. And
beautiful.
And the last point about the lotus is, in Wuhan, especially, lotus always grow during the summer instead of autumn.
Uh-huh. Well, in Wuhan, are there 6 seasons or 4?
4 seasons.
Yeah.
It's during like May, June, July, August, something like that.
The summers in Wuhan are probably not just like the summers in Vrindavan. Summers in Vrindavan are unbearably hot, scorching hot, and dry. As we saw some of the images, it's like dry, hot. When Prabhupada was visiting in Delhi, and this is 1956, 57 period of time, after he had entered Vanaprastha stage and was, looking for a nice opportunity to serve Krishna. In Delhi, he fainted in the street. It was so hot. And Prabhupada could endure all kinds of hardship and not even blink, not flinch, not show any sign. He fainted, passed out in the streets of Delhi from the heat. So the summer in Vrindavan and summer in Wuhan are a little different. Ecstatic, huh? What's the deal? You don't know?
So this one, it's not, this is only for you to hear properly because it's not audible.
But why is this? Do you know why? I don't need an answer. Why the static comes and goes?
That I am not.
Okay. There's a hand in the back, or there's a hand in the front too. Let's do the one in the front because this stand. All right, later.
Thank you.
Very nice poem about the lotus. I like that. Very nice. Very nice. Can you send that to me? The Chinese and the English translation. I'll put it in that section of the
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
That was a very powerful statement of everything has spiritual value if it's used in Krishna consciousness. And for personally to internalize this is practicing Krishna consciousness is not a straight rosy path. There are twists, turns, bumps, everything is there because of our conditioning, whatever it be. And at times there is progress, 2 steps forward, and at times you go 1 step backward. And at such a time, there is a sense of guilt that, what am I doing? But then this particular line that says, everything has spiritual value, gives the kind of strength to lift yourself up and keep moving on. Now, externally, when we are sharing Krishna conscious with people in general, if we see the sense of self-worth people have, no matter what their socioeconomic status be, no matter their education, there is a sense of emptiness, whether it's in a small child or it's with a very successful person and everything in between. And generally people carry this, I don't know, an emotional baggage or whatever. So when we are, as you said this yesterday, the bridge preaching.
Yeah.
So if we can convey this message in a manner where it becomes a ray of hope to so many who have this sense of low self-esteem or self-worth, that yes, you have value. You have value no matter what your background, no matter what you've done, where you are in life. So that was very poignant. Thank you.
A comment on your comment. 2 things. What you just shared is common to help people who are feeling those negative feelings. Call it loneliness, call it emptiness, low self-esteem, etc., etc. Those the range of negative feelings. It's common. I can give you the names of some people that they teach this. You're really good teachers. I'll give you one name right now. Brene Brown. You've heard her name before? Check it out. The punchline is, I'm enough. But it's not Krishna conscious. And it's true, but it's not sufficient. And it doesn't give stability and sustenance. It's adjusting the mind in a way that's meaningful for her, because that's what helped her. She went to, anyway, she described she had a breakdown as a researcher. And she's, very good speaker and a very good person and inspirational, etc. But I'm enough is not enough. Yeah, it's insufficient. It's nice and it helped people. She helps a lot of people, but it's not. It doesn't have the shelter of transcendence. It's not that she's not a spiritual person, but that's not her main message. Her main message is, emotional stability and looking within, etc., 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 etc. The spiritual conception, without the spiritual conception, it's insufficient. And it's so how do you inculcate the spiritual conception? Well, you have to be like Prabhupada was, to carry it and then to give it. And supposing you're not there yet, then you have confidence in that the concept, and you express your faith in the concept while not pretending that you're there yet if you're not there yet. But you don't have to paint yourself some dark color and say, I'm not there yet, but here's truth. You just, be honest with yourself and with others, and try to get there. That's our process. Shelter. No, my point is in response to what you said. Shelter in Krishna is the solution, and without the shelter in Krishna, it's impermanent. It's not sufficient. Now we have that confidence, and then subjectively, back to what you said, sometimes we're closer to that and sometimes we're further away from that. We're in this unsteady bhakti position. So what do? You don't pretend that you're something that you're not. You be who you are, and you take shelter and speak the message of the perfected souls as an instrument of them. That's what we do. And keep going forward. We have something up front. Where's our microphone person? There you go.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. First of all, lot of appreciation for this presentation. We had just glimpse of this in Singapore. I was wishing to hear more. Somehow in my heart, that desire was there, and I didn't know that this is going to be the retreat topic then.
Can we take a risk with the other microphone that makes lots of noise? Yeah, turn the direction of the speaker. That may make a difference. Take them both. Take them both.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah. Just appreciation for the presentation, Maharaj. Wonderful presentation. This particular presentation has increased my appreciation for Srila Prabhupada. His efforts started as soon as he saw his spiritual master and heard from him. Though the conditions were not supporting then, but the wish and sincere desire to fulfill the desire of his spiritual master was there in him. Very bold, very strong since then, because he has the faith in what he has received. I was trying to relate to Gargi saying one day I will get all this understanding because the source from where I'm hearing is absolute source. In similar way, Srila Prabhupada had faith in the source from where he was receiving this knowledge. In the chapter 24, we heard about Krishna is called Kaivalya. Spiritual and material energies both come from him. And today's class, we heard also the Yukta Vairagya principle of material energy can be offered to Krishna because superior energy, spiritual energy is superior energy. And unless the material energy comes in contact with this spiritual superior energy, it cannot produce anything. And whatever is produced, when offered to Krishna, it is a process of purification for us.
Yeah.
One thing that touched my heart is, though I have been hearing, but hearing now again, is really very good. Sincere, loving affection is what is needed. And with that, if we do, many times we think it's for our purification, the services, what we are doing. But here in this class, we were discussing about the transcendental pleasure experienced by Krishna by accepting the service of his devotees in various ways, in the capacity, whatever the devotee can do. The chapter 27, I like the part of where it says protection of cows is not just other things like ahimsa and karmakanda procedure, but it's a means to secure the highest benefit to the human society. That was very touching. And when we do our services, if we keep this in our mind, we can do better. That's what I felt.
Okay, you did a fantastic job sharing. I see your hand in the back. Can we take the microphones into the back?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam to everyone. Wonderful presentation. And one thing that's touched, everyone mentioned that if I do the devotional service and spiritualize our mind and activity, then material things also become spiritualized. Material.
You like that one. So does he. He likes that one.
Yes, likes. So that is a very touching point. And other thing, I think that this is practical example is in Vrindavan and any other place, that is spiritual place. We feel it because all of the saints and doing kirtan and everything. So due to that place is spiritualized. Material things also spiritualized. So that is practical example there. And other two questions I have, but that is very actually material, not the material questions, but question is that cow protection and other animals.
Cow protection and
other animal protections.
Other
Animals protection.
Animal protection.
Yes. So what about the, the cow is a secret and cow is the most important to human society. But what about like that buffalo or goats? Should protect them? How to protect them? What do you think about it?
By saying cow protection doesn't, well, let's say it positively. A subset of cow protection means bull protection. Okay. We could say protection of cows and bulls, but it becomes shorter just by saying cow protection. It includes protection of bulls. So that's what I think about. That's my response to your question. When we say cow protection, the bull doesn't give milk. The bull gives something else. However, if the bull is seen as being like expendable, then by default, the cow is also expendable. Why is the bull expendable? He isn't giving me anything. He's taking something. So same thing happens to the cow. At a certain stage, the cow isn't giving something, so she's expendable.
Yes, that is
My response is saying cow protection includes bull protection without expressing it. It's a subset.
Yes, I got that point.
Okay.
But my question is that other animal like the goats and buffalo, how to
understand why the emphasis is upon cows instead of goats and buffalo? That's your question?
Yes.
Okay. It has to do with the modes of nature. Let's say, what was special about a Brahmana? And what's special about the cow? Go Brahmana Hitayacha. What's the big deal about Brahmanas? Everyone should be honored. That's the egalitarian view. All animals are to be honored. Why special attention to the cow? Because the cow provides, this cow is in the mode of goodness.
Yes.
The cow is defenseless. And therefore the cow in particular should be defended. Other animals, goats have, etc., 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 have some means of defense. Cows don't.
Okay.
And then they're in the mode of goodness. And they supply something that's very, very special. They supply what's used in Vedic sacrifices and preparations that are offered to Krishna that are of the best quality to be offered to Krishna. So cows are very dear to Krishna. It's not turn it around and say, well, monkeys aren't very dear to Krishna, or peacocks aren't very dear to Krishna, or goats aren't very dear to Krishna, or water buffaloes aren't very dear to Krishna. They're all dear to Krishna, but the cows are especially dear to Krishna, for the reasons mentioned. So special attention goes to the cows. Go Brahmana Hitayacha.
Yes.
It emanates from Krishna. Take it down from there. You could look at the things that are down from there and say this or that or the other, but they're most dear to Krishna. They have an affection for Krishna, unlike the other entities. The other entities in the spiritual world, they have love for Krishna too. So they're not discounted, but they don't have the same love for Krishna. Like, what's special about the gopis? What's special about the brahmanas? What's special about the Brijbasis? There's something special about them.
Yes. So another question, maybe it is a dull question, but I need to ask you.
Go ahead.
So question is that Krishna is so kind. He wants to he wants liberation for conditioned souls.
Yes.
Every conditioned souls.
Yes.
So say hypothetically, every conditioned soul liberated. Say hypothetically.
Okay, hypothetically.
Yes. So liberated, then what will be this material world? That will vanish?
The answer to your question is in Chaitanya Charitamrita. You ready?
Yeah.
Haridas Thakur says, supposing the whole world becomes liberated, all living entities, all forms of life become liberated, no problem. There's an unlimited number of living entities that will take their place. Now, what are those unlimited number of other living entities? Sarvagata, the living entities are everywhere. Supposing everybody in this room becomes liberated. And, whatever plants are here and whatever, bugs are here or whatever microbial germs are here, everyone gets liberated. There's an unlimited supply of other living entities that will take their place, our place, unlimited. They're not in their manifest stage at present, but there's unlimited living entities, literally unlimited. So that's what happens when everyone gets liberated. There's other living entities to take their place. So you can say the bad news is not everyone's going to get liberated. But theoretically, if that were to happen, there's an unlimited number of living entities to replace them. And they become elevated to other life forms according to Lord's arrangement. That's what's described by Haridas Thakur to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, Haridas says, dear Lord, when you entered into this world, you liberated everyone. He said, but Haridas, look around. You see so many living entities. They're not liberated. Oh, yes, they are. Then other living entities have taken their place. There's unlimited numbers of other living entities. And he can deliver them too. That this is back to this unconditional question.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Wonderful.
I'm going to end here. It's after 9 o'clock. We'll see you again 10 o'clock, right? Srila Prabhupada ki.